Soul debuted on Disney Plus, of course, on Christmas Day when I couldn't watch it immediately. Soul is of course, like I said, the newest film from Disney and Pixar, the animation giant or giants coming together to make this one yet again. And it follows a jazz musician who also just happens to be a middle school band teacher, as he is separated from his body. His soul is separated from his body, of course, right before a life changing gig. And the movie stars, of course, Jamie Foxx and Tina Fey, and two, I gotta say, wonderful voice performances. And it is directed by Pete Docter, one of the biggest names at Pixar. He also recently did Inside Out and Up over the last decade or so. And yeah, Darius, what'd you think of this one?
So I did not see it on Christmas Day because I was with family, but the day after, like last night, relatively, and just off the bat right now, it might be my favorite Pixar film. It
Really?
might be my
That's
favorite, and I
interesting.
love Pixar animated films. I love, Toy Story, all those things, but this something about this movie, and especially coming as a young African American and having family into jazz and into music and into all that type of stuff. Something about this really resonant. Like I teared up at the end. I'll just say that right now. I kind of cried and teared up because not only was the messaging I really enjoyed and how, because the thing about Soul is that when watching the movie, they're kind of telling you that like, hey, we kind of build you in a way to build you into this type of person or this type of person. But really, at the end and at Soul at its core is who are you fundamentally, and it's like, you can tell yourself you're passionate about something, but then like again, that spark and something that's very prevalent in Soul and everything could be something else entirely that really gives you happiness and sort of, and I think they played with the whole spark thing and passion and ambition in a way where it's a short-term happiness and short-term sort of mentality of like, hey, this is something I've, maybe I enjoyed this for a long time, but like once you're in there and then you really see what really goes on, like Jamie Foxx's character, like when he got in, we see that towards the spoiler alert, we kind of see that towards the end, but just in general, I think it's really about forging your own destiny, forging your own path, and not being blindsided, I guess, by this mentality of maybe false passion and ambition. That's kind of how I interpreted certain elements of the film. And the music, by the way, just. Oof,
Yes. The
God.
music. Here's the thing. I did not. When I first found out that both Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross were coming together to do a Pixar film, I thought that was very interesting because they've done movies like a lot of David Fincher films, like Gone Girl, like The Social
Yeah.
Network, and they did such a great job with both of those movies. And this movie is no
Hmm.
exception. This is a terrific score. It fit in very well as far as like the with everything that was going on,
Exactly.
and to kind of build on what you were saying as far as like the whole motion of the film. Like, of course, with every Pixar film, you know, it's about like what if this thing had emotions, right?
Exactly.
Kind of quoting from Honest Trailers, right? So like, what if souls had emotions? But at the same time, I feel like this movie didn't focus nearly as much on like the emotional aspect of everything. Not to say that this movie doesn't like have any emotional strength at
Oh,
all.
no,
That's
of
not the
course.
case at all. But this focused more on the existential as opposed to the
Yeah.
emotional, and I thought that was very interesting. Like as far as like like okay, what exactly do you want to do with your life? And like that's a
It's
lot.
a
That's
lot.
some heavy
It's a
stuff
big
to throw
question.
into a
Yeah.
children's film. Like it's a kids movie, but it's a more mature kids film. Like I watched it. One of the people that I watched it with was my younger sister who just started junior high, and I'm thinking to myself like, okay, if someone like a couple years younger than her watched this movie, I'm not sure if they would have enjoyed it, but she
Yeah.
loved it. And I think like that's like the minimum age that you can like watch this movie and actually appreciate it.
Exactly.
So like I thought that like I said, it's a more mature kids film, and I think that the protagonist Joe Gardner, he's like this. He's a
Yeah.
music teacher. He's not like
And an artist,
a
a starving
cowboy doll.
artist as well.
He's not a cute little.
A
I'm sorry.
starving artist as well. That's really another aspect.
Yeah,
So
yeah. He's not like like I said, a cowboy doll. He's not like a cute little fish or like a cool superhero. He's
exactly.
he's a regular guy,
Hmm.
and I thought that was it's an interesting deviation from what they would usually do as far as like putting a protagonist into not only one of their Pixar films, but as far as like a kids movie in general. So again, like I said, that's a very It was an interesting twist.
Oh yeah.
And even then too, like I said, these characters, you have Joe Gardner, then you have the Soul 22, voiced by Tina
Oh,
Fey, who's
she was.
wonderful as well.
She kept. I kept
I
laughing.
adore her.
Like,
She's
as
terrific.
much as how this movie was very thematically mature, because the whole purpose is really, what's your life like? Like, what is your soul? Like, what do you want to do in life, essentially? And making every moment count. I thought, it's because one of the moments in the film that I really enjoyed kind of showed how Joe Gardner's mentality was kind of operating, was sort of, he was enclosing himself into this thing of like, yo, I'm gonna get there, but like, you see where, I think it was in the beginning or somewhere in the middle, where he touches the panel, like, oh, you're not this person, when they were Tina Fey's character 22 and Joe Gardner were finally meeting, and you just see all his memories and like, wait, it didn't go down like that, but it's like it was, you just weren't accepting it, or maybe you weren't
Yeah.
choosing to accept how other people look at you and treat you. And not only
Yep.
we see it in there, but we see it when one of the twists in the films is that they switch bodies. 22 is in Joe Gardner's body and Joe Gardner's in the cat's body. So now as Joe Gardner, he's looking up at the overall world above him, and 22, who is, she questioned a lot of the biggest philosophers, and some of the biggest
Yeah.
stars, which really funny. um and when you
Hmm.
see how she interacts with some of the everyday people that Joe interacts with, like her, like the barber, I thought that scene was just amazing, because it's like, oh, because Joe, he's like, oh, I didn't know that about you. I didn't know you wanted to be a veterinarian, that sort of thing. And it's like,
Yeah. Vet.
that's
Yep.
kind of like one of the points in life as well, is that if you don't ask questions, if you don't explore, if you don't discover, then what is life truly if you're just self-containing yourself in this bubble of like your own perfection, or want to be the best of the best, and I think they really handle
Yeah.
some of that really well, because really of 22 character who wants to just really, in the beginning,
She doesn't want
she
to
doesn't
do it.
want
She
to do
doesn't
it.
want to
Yeah,
live. She doesn't want to go down to Earth.
she's
She
like,
doesn't want
nah,
to do it.
I'm
She's
up
very
here.
skeptical about Earth and everything. And I think that kind of backtracking as to what happens with Joe Gardner. I mean, this is really both these characters too. Like both of them are really used to teach very intelligent um, life
Hmm.
lessons. And again, like especially with Joe, like the idea that like okay, he's focused on this big thing, like getting his big break. He's focused on all these big things that he wants to do. But like,
Exactly.
I love how they basically show like one of the morals of the story is that it's just small things, it's the little things that you focus on that end up building together and snowballing into the biggest part of like what your life really means and the value of your life.
Oh yeah,
This is a, and again, even with all that too, even with all that heavy stuff that's really been thrown at us, it's a very funny movie. Like I said, voice performances, both Jamie Foxx and Tina
absolutely
Fey, I thought they were
phenomenal.
terrific. They
I
worked
think
very
Jamie
well
Foxx was a
together.
great
And it's
choice.
funny, he was
He
a
was a
great choice. And
great
here's the
choice.
thing: like there was one. This was getting really nitpicky in one of the trailers. Like there was just something that I thought that he said. Like it sounded kind of weak. And again, like I was just being nitpicky. And I'm like, I don't know. Is he going to do a good job? But then like anytime that he spoke throughout the rest of the film, like he was really good. I'm like, okay, maybe it's just that one
Yeah, like I
that one
heard the
thing that
passion.
hit
I heard that,
my
like,
ear the wrong.
striving to want to be something, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I thought Jamie Foxx was great. And again, he's an artist himself as well. So it's like having him.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have to say, one of my favorite moments, even as a creative, especially when writing, I get in the zone, right? Like, what that
Same.
is,
Yes.
So how they
Yes.
portrayed that in Soul, where you see a majority of really artists. You see a lot of them are artists and everything in that profession, either writing or really, I guess not just artists, but anyone who's just so in there, And you see that it's kind of this bubble, and I like how visually they crafted it, because it's like, and if you pop it, all of a sudden they're like back into. We all had those moments where it's like, oh wait, I've been writing for how long, or I've been doing this for how long? Oh boy, And I really liked how they portrayed that, just to show sort of that disconnection, and how it is sort of
Mm-hmm.
this unnatural plane. Again, visually, this just it surpassed my expectations visually as well.
Same. And like here's the thing, like one in terms of like the visual end or even on the story end too, like one of the things that Pixar is like has always been very good at, and this is especially strong in this film, was how great they are, like how imaginative they are with
Oh
portraying
yes,
things that we all experience every single day. like you said, like as far as like the whole in the zone thing too. And one of the things that other things I really appreciate about this film is that I had no idea exactly like how this movie was going to go. Like it still
Same.
kept that unpredictability factor throughout the entire film. And you would think that it's interesting. Like on the surface, like it seems like kind of a simplistic story,
Yeah.
at least from what we were marketed to us. But like the depths that the story goes into, like throughout its duration, like I thought that was very very well done.
Oh yeah.
And even then too, like as far as like the whole imaginative quality with how it's portrayed, with how Pixar portrays everything. Can we just talk about the animation for a
Oh
second?
my god.
Because that the animation, like you can always expect that to be great when it comes to a Pixar film, but when it came to this particular film, like I said, this is like a much more lifelike and realistic. I'm not going to say realistic story, but there's definitely a more
Organic.
down to earth feeling as
Very organic
as
and
far as
natural.
like
Yeah.
yes, yeah, that's a great way to put it. Like even when it came to just the animations of New York City itself, like I remember, like there's a point where Joe Gardner's riding on the 7 train,
Yeah.
and he's going by Silver Cup Studios in Queens, and thinking to myself like, oh man, like whenever I do a delivery for my job, and I drive on the Queensboro Bridge, I see that all the time. I just love that lifelike quality
Mhm.
in what's supposed to be CGI animation. And I thought that was exceptionally well done. And just think, like, of course, Toy Story broke ground like, 25 years ago
Exactly.
now.
Yeah.
And it's just insane to see like the amount of, I guess, progress that they've made, where that CGI and 3D and computer animation have made since then.
Mhm.
Like imagine thinking like, oh man, it can't get any better than this. Like back in 1995, like, oh man, there's no way. Like, what are they gonna be able to do next? And then just seeing that as opposed to like what's coming out now,
Yeah.
like that's got to be something that's really,
It's
really interesting.
like one of the things I really liked about Soul as well, and I guess this goes into the whole purpose of jazz, and they encapsulated Harlem and just that community, the African American community, and and even again, really small moment, and a lot of people sometimes overlook this, especially when you're not, I guess, African American or whatever, is the barbershop. The purpose of that barbershop and
Yeah.
being there, and just how natural everyone just sounded and talked. And the second he took off the head and he had a bad haircut, he was like, "Nah, brother, no, we got to get him in. We got to fix him up." I was like, "Yo, that is
It's like, no,
such
it's an
a
emergency.
thing that we do in the African American community." That I'm like, those attention to details, those small things, and that's something I really love about this film. And I think films in general, it's just the small moments just elevate so much more in the overall
Hmm.
experience, because you have those small moments that are really the key factors of the film, the key, the heart and the meat of that
Yep.
development, and then visually everything else just elevates it. And I think that's what Soul did. If there's anything I didn't like that much as I love the comedy, I think there was too much of it, and sometimes it fell
Really, that's
flat
interesting.
for me, mainly because it's like, yo, you just hit a deep moment here, and then all of a sudden a joke came, and I'm like, that it irked me a bit, but I was like, you know what, I don't know, I felt 50-50 on some of the jokes, mainly not that they weren't bad, it was just that it was a bit too much at certain points. I was just like joke after joke after joke.
Mhm.
It felt very Thor Ragnarok-ish, if you know what I mean.
That's interesting because I remember feeling the exact same way about Thor Ragnarok when that came up. But when it comes to Soul, honestly, I didn't feel that way at all. I thought the balance between comedy and emotion, I thought that was perfect.
Like,
Like I remember just
for me
laughing
it was just a bit
consistently, and I
too
never
much.
and it never felt jarring
Yeah,
for me.
for me it was just a bit too much. Like, I think, like, there was a certain moment where um there was a really deep moment. I think it was with Joe Garner and his mom, and I think a joke came after, right after, or something like that. And I was just like, I don't know how I felt about that. Um, in general, like, especially in the beginning, I liked the jokes. They were hard hitting, they were fast, especially when
Mhm.
you start introducing 22, because that's kind of just who she. I mean, it's Tina Fey. What do you expect? What do you expect? She's gonna.
Yeah, it's Tina Fey. Like, hey Tina, do you want to play yourself? Like that was
Yeah,
the pitch.
exactly. That's what it was.
That was the
And
pitch when they were
again,
trying to get her to sign on.
great. Um, And I think sort of the innocence of 22 as well is sort of what made her special and unique, is that as much as she rebelled being on Earth and not wanting to live, the second she got into Joe's body, that's really when things changed. It's this film really grounded and really gave a sense of perception, and how not necessarily flawed, but just how unique and different it is, and how you're not always right. And you see that in Joe Gardner's case throughout the film. and how like, no, you're messing up my life, and it's like, no, man, you, even Tina Fey's character kind of said this, you died or you're supposed to be dead. This is my time to shine
Yeah.
out, you know. And and then she wasn't being like rude about it. She was being real, and that's what 22's character really is. She's real. When you see that in the barber scene, like you just see everyone's like, "Yo, let me have that lollipop." It's like something about the lollipop like made Joe all of a sudden be real and authentic, or start asking deep, thought-provoking questions. So I like that aspect of the duality of Tina Fey's character is real, honest, and she kind of sees different layers that Joe doesn't, and it gives Joe a different perspective. And now, and spoiler again, at the end, he kind of gets another life at it, another go at it, And how I
Mhm.
perceived it, I was like, yo, I don't think it's passion in music, but really teaching other people to have a passion for something. Music is obviously his interest and everything, so he's going to pursue that. But like, I think the balance was well made. I thought visually, and again, even what was the other character, the line guy that I was trying to hunt them down as well because something was wrong.
Oh, Terry.
He was great.
Terry.
Whoever the voice actor was, because I forgot who it was, but he was great. He was just he
She.
was
She.
who
She.
Sheen.
No, she.
Oh, she
Did
was
you say he
great.
or
Oh, it
she?
sounded like a
Yeah, she was great.
guy. My bad. But like
but
it was great. I loved every second of
but
this film.
yeah, just to wrap things up, like again, I paid nothing for this because it's on Disney Plus. It wasn't one of those bullshit $30 surcharges like they did with Mulan.
Yeah,
So I paid nothing for it except for, of course, like the subscription fee that we have in my house. And it's an hour and 47 minutes long. I regret nothing
same here.
watching this movie. I feel like it was anything that I had to give to watch this movie. It was so worth it.
It was so
It was honestly, it was a
honestly
great
a
film.
part of
It
me.
works on so many
It
levels.
does, but I'm also disappointed mainly in one thing, and that it's only on Disney Plus. I wish it went to theaters. I would gladly see this.
Honestly, I kind of do too. I feel like this might have been the kind of movie that you might have been able to appreciate a bit more if you had
Yeah,
like the bigger screen with again all the visuals that it had going on, even with the sound wise too, especially since like that music
especially
would have exploded off the
exactly.
surround sound.
But like overall,
So,
I say I recommend it. Highly, like, if you're into Pixar,
oh, I highly recommend this. Anyone watching this review, you got to watch it. You absolutely have to watch
yes,
this.